All right, welcome to ANZUK Wednesday night webinar with myself and Willie. Hey
Hello,
guys,
everyone.
if everyone, while everyone's logging in, we've got a few numbers popping up. I can see them here. We'll just have a quick kind of introduction and yeah, kind of a run over what we're going to cover today. So today's topic. Just while everyone's coming in, I can see the attendees popping up still, so mindful that we don't want to cover too much detail before we get everyone in. But yeah, me and Willie today will be covering the topic that's listed here: CV writing and interview tips. So yeah, we'll get into that. But Willie, you want to talk about, you're back to London now, how you're finding that? Well, while everyone kind of comes in, you've been on furlough and had a bit of an experience in New Zealand. How have you found being back on board, and are you excited?
Yeah, really good actually. Thanks, Mike. I guess it's a little bit different considering New Zealand was pretty advanced in sort of preventing COVID from spreading too much. But it's good to get back and get in the swing of things and start talking to educators and schools again. And obviously the weather is a bonus. Not that it's been that nice today, but the weather over the last week or so, when the sun does shine, it's pretty hot, so it's nice. The only problem with sort of the weather in London is, and I guess in New Zealand, when you have nice weather, you got the ability to go swimming straight away. Well, being from New Plymouth anyway, but not the exact same in London, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's it. Well, unfortunately, there's that gap as well. You got to jump on public transport to get out to any coast at the moment. So I've heard of a few good apps though where you can hire cars. So obviously in your bubble and head out to the coast. The attendees, just as I'm looking here, are slowly slowing down in terms of entry. So we'll crack on. I'm aware it's kind of a couple minutes past, so obviously there might be a few kind of late entries through the door, but we'll crack on, Willie, and start talking about CV writing and interview tips. So a timely one, I suppose, because we're all thinking about September and the new school year. How does this kind of, or how can we best kind of utilize a few key skills here to put our best foot forward for new roles come September. So sorry mate,
even more important, Mike, even more important, the fact that in the current climate, it's obviously a lot of competition for places and positions within schools. So having a CV that really stands out, or being able to interview with a few tips and tricks doesn't hurt, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. It's a really interesting time, isn't it? Where we've got this inability to get face-to-face for interviews. So obviously, your CV is one way of really putting your best foot forward. And obviously, we'll talk a little bit about, and we've done a webinar, a few weeks ago on virtual interviewing and virtual CVs. So hopefully, there's a few guys here that have listened on that and maybe put together a virtual CV. And if you want to hear more about that, feel free to ask any of your consultants, because we can send you the recording of that webinar and some instructions on how to put together a CV video as well. But I suppose first things first, as I said, I've done webinar recently, so you may remember my face, but we'll go, this is a little bit about us. So I'm Mike, and this is Will, and he'll talk a little bit about himself. But we're both from New Zealand, so the Kiwi numbers in the office are slowly growing. We lost a few this year, but we gained a couple more as well. So there's a few of us with the Kiwi accents around. We're almost overtaking the Aussies by number, I think. But yeah, I'm a senior consultant on the Southwest team, and Willie's on the Southwest team as well. So yeah, you may recognise us from speaking to us. But Willie, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, cool. So been in the UK for about 13 months now, I think it is. I mean, I had a brief stint at home in New Zealand just recently with COVID and furlough, going home for a wedding and sort of getting stuck there. So 13 months ago, made the decision to come over, travelled South America and Central before I came over. Definitely bucket list countries to go to, or sort of areas. And then have been working at ANZUK for the past 12 months. And I'm sure I've chatted with a few of you guys during those times as well.
Awesome, awesome. I think this could be a good opportunity. We've kind of mentioned where we're from to maybe get a poll up and ask where we've got people signing in from for this webinar today. So I'm gonna launch this, and cool. Sorry, that just changes screens there. So we've got most people from London, regional UK, a couple from Oz and Canada. The results are still moving, so I will leave that for other. Yeah, if anyone, you can communicate to us via the questions function as well. So if you're from other, let us know where's other. Cool. I think everyone's finished answering that, so I'm going to close that and share results. Cool.
The other there, it'd be interesting to see where they're from.
Yeah, I'm going to get rid of those. Sorry, I'm not sure if that goes back and forth on your screen as it does for mine, but yeah, so interesting. So we've got 70% from London, 17 from regional UK, which is awesome. For us, regional UK launched kind of last academic year, and we've seen some awesome growth there and some really good opportunities. So awesome to have for you guys logged in as well. But I'm mindful of the time, and we'll kind of crack on and cover what we set out to cover. But good to see some good people from all over the show. So CV writing tips. Willie, you wanna lead this one, and I've got a couple of documents I can reference here as well. So just let me know when you're kind of referencing bits and pieces, and I can get them up on the screen.
Yeah, you may as well get up the teaching CV template that we use and send out to teachers, please, Mike.
Yep.
Cool. So I'll just move in between both of the CV templates. Sorry, I'm getting the words mixed up right there. And just go over what's sort of important. So to start off, obviously is your name and your specialism, but most importantly is your teaching philosophy. So for your teaching philosophy, our recommendation is to keep it short, sharp, and memorable. Just 5 to 6 lines that you want it to capture the audience and encourage them to read on. So if you think about it, the audience is generally a head teacher or a business manager. So you imagine the number of CVs they have. You want something that sets you apart from the competition. Always think, and I know you spoke about it when we were chatting earlier in the week, Mike, is what's your point of difference? What makes you different from other teachers? Is your philosophy relevant to the position? They're just a few questions to think of. I won't get you to change over, but when it comes to support staff, the equivalent is a personal statement. So your personal statement is, again, what captures the audience. Again, keep it short and sharp. What are your strengths? What type of educator are you? What's your point of difference? If you don't specifically have experience working with children in a professional setting, then why would you make a strong teaching assistant? And also maybe include some examples about like previous sports teams or volunteering experience you've had with children. But again, like both of those things, the philosophy and the statement, are things that the audience is going to read. That's what's going to get them continuing reading your CV and getting their attention grabbed.
Nice.
The next part, if you sort of head down, mate, is qualifications. So it's the same for both support staff and teachers. I'm mindful that we are only on the teaching one at the moment, but it is exactly the same. So keeping it simple, writing your exact degree down and your year's studies. We find that too frequently asked questions are what education should you list. So always list your highest form of education. So, for example, if you were a high school student and this is literally your first CV that you're writing, then you can list your sort of high school graduate and noteworthy, anything noteworthy during school, like your grades and whatnot. If you're a university student, note your bachelor's degree or whatever degree that you possess, a trade, so forth. How should you write it? Always write it in reverse chronological order. So most recent at the top and work your way back. As mentioned, just include the date and relevant degree as well. The next section is the employment history. So this is a really important section and a good chance to outline all your different experiences. So this is where you can highlight your relevant experiences, your responsibilities, your extracurricular activities, any sort of leadership positions that you've been involved in, and of course achievements as well. Always begin with a bit about the school to paint a picture in the audience's mind. So, for example, if you were at a two-form school and the class size was large, include that stuff as well. It's always good for that head teacher to know sort of what your background is, what you've done so far, and sort of what your experience are in general. For newly qualified teachers, I'm not too sure if we have any NQTs tuned in today. You'll just need to list your teaching placements and experience you gained through this. Be specific as well. I guess your placements are similar to any sort of work experience a teacher has had. So write as much as possible about that as well. Underneath, there's also a section on if you go down a bit further, Mikey, there's also a section on accreditations and professional development courses you've completed. Keep it relevant to education. If you've completed a coffee making course or something like that, it's not really relevant to that target audience. So relevance is key when it comes to this section. So, for example, QTS, first aid courses, SEN courses, leadership courses, anything educational based that you think would grab a head teachers or whoever's reading your CV. If you go to the support staff CV template really quickly, please, Mike.
Yeah, no worries. I think we'll just quickly run through the first two parts so you can kind of see, like what he said, it's exactly the same. Personal statement, qualifications. Again, like this is a key one. Experience working with children, which may be, like you said, Willie, volunteer or otherwise. Sorry, how far do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, if you just go to the employment section.
Yeah.
Cool. So for support staff, you'll notice that if you just go up a little bit so that we can see it on the screen, so you'll see that they note experience working with children is moved ahead of other work experience. So if you have any teaching support experience, you can elaborate on this further on here. Include any like babysitting experience working with SEN children, coaching experience, anything. Underneath is the other employment section. However, unless it's relevant, you don't need to go into too much detail. It's important to remember your audience, and for support staff, the audience is mainly going to want to read about your experience working with children and your voluntary experiences as well. So underneath, you'll see on both CVs is volunteer activities. So it's a good chance to showcase any extracurricular activities you've been involved in, any coaching, volunteering with children, anything relevant to work with children or schools. It's a good chance to showcase there anyway. So that's the same on both CVs. I won't get you to go between both. Also, the references, just to make sure you include any references as well, any relevant references. So I know for signing up with ANZUK, you have to be able to have references, professional references, which date back 2 years, and generally 2 to 3 references as well. So just having relevant references that, you know, you've been in, say, their school within the last 2 years, or even if it's a character reference, someone that's known you recently or has been involved with anything you've been doing recently. I'm unsure if you want to add something there, Mikey, at all.
Yeah, I think like it says it all there. Your references aren't necessarily or at all for you know, working through ANZUK for the head teacher or otherwise. Like, we'll source your references for you. When need be, we'll pass them on to the head teacher. So this is just for us. I suppose the key thing to note, like you said, Willie, is just make sure that, you know, you're happy for us to contact them, and you note if not, because obviously there's some cases where you're in a current job and school doesn't know you're leaving or otherwise, so that just needs to be noted when it comes to references. But I think in terms of like the CV itself, well, you've covered that in really good detail. I think the really important thing was, you know your audience and the relevance. Did you want me to now get up the blog that you were gonna just mention?
Yeah. Well, actually, just before you go to that, I don't know if you got it. Did you? You might not have got it. The profile that I sent through.
Oh no, is that just to summarize?
So what I was just going to show everyone who's tuned in today is one of the profiles that we create based on the CV that we receive. So the profiles basically outline your experience, qualifications, strengths, have a photo of your professional photo as well, just so that schools can see it. And it's just short and sharp that we can send with the CV. So we can go over that a little bit later. I'll get you to bring up the relevant blog that Camille did from the Australian office.
There we go.
Cool. So
CV.
Just before I hand you over to Mike for the sort of interview tips, I just wanted to share some brief insights from a blog that Camille Alexander wrote. So Camille is in our Australian office, and she has good knowledge of CVs and sort of what to write and what's important in them. So Camille, in her blog, believes the single most important thing about your CV is relevance. So relevance ties into the purpose, the content, the structure, and the engagement of a CV. So the purpose of a CV is to establish why you're the right person and the relevant applicant for the role. The content of your CV should always serve the purpose. So the content must be relevant, and more specifically, relevant to the role that you're applying for. As I alluded to earlier, the structure should be chronological, with the most recent and relevant study listed first. And then finally, it needs to be engaging. So in order for you to be shortlisted or capture the attention of your audience, you need to engage them and maintain the intention of the person reading it. So don't be irrelevant. When I was talking to someone in the office just before about CVs and what they always do when creating a CV, a great way to think about it is, what would you like to read if you were the person on the other end, if you were the head teacher reading it? So it's a good sort of idea to have at the back of your head when you are sort of going through your CV and crafting it. I'll also just briefly touch on a few tips that were on a few of Camille's other blogs. I think it could be a really good idea to send these out to them after Mike, but we'll chat about that and see how we can do it. So she's got about 6-7 tips that make a good CV. So length, keep it short. White space. White space is an important aspect of a CV. So the blank spaces give the eyes a chance to rest. and help define the content. Just back to length, keep it short means about 2 to 3 pages. An ideal CV is only 2 pages. Relevance, obviously given the constraints of space and lack of time, so generally 2 pages to capture the reader's attention. You can't afford to be irrelevant. File form, save as PDF. Layout and formatting, so always present the information clearly and logically. Whatever style decisions you make sure that they are throughout the entire CV as well. So, for example, all bullet points are indented at the same level. And finally, make sure your CV is being proofread so it's comprehensible. This means that every sentence should be clear and concise. I mean, get your flatmates or a friend or a colleague to check over it before you're sending it off as well. But I thought, her blogs were brilliant, and it's definitely something that we can share with everyone watching tonight, because I think it's definitely a good read and gives you an idea of what an ideal blog is and what people are looking for.
Yeah, awesome. That's some really helpful stuff there, Willie. I think you summarised it really well. I think in terms of like content, less is more. But like also engaging and understanding your audience. So I think to summarize, and those kind of key 3 points would summarize what you put together there. And I think, like we've got access to obviously all those blogs and the tips and tricks. And I've got a question here as well along the same lines about this presentation being available for us to see post webinar. So just to answer that, all our webinars are recorded, and we're happy to share those as well. So that this, if you want to reference this webinar again and make some, pause it along the way and make some notes for your own CV, then just ask your consultant for access to this webinar. So I think I'm going to take quick second here just to do the other couple of questions that we had, Willie, on the poll. So
perfect, yeah.
I think now that you've talked about CVs, let's just try and find out who we've got listening and what type of work they are looking for at the moment. So I'm going to launch this. Here we go. Cool. Distributing, collecting responses. There we go. Here we go. We got a good mix, really good mix actually, between teaching, primary, secondary, support staff, and others. So exactly what we want. I think it's a good testament to the reach that ANZUK has now in terms of education, supporting everyone, and when it comes to education. So good to really see that. I'm interested in the other as well, if you want to comment on that one.
Does others sort of come under like groundskeeper, librarian,
administration?
Yeah.
Leadership maybe. We work, we don't limit ourselves at all within the realm of education. So I think the responses stop coming in now, so I'm going to close that and share results.
Secondary teachers, awesome.
Awesome. So
what subjects?
Awesome. So I'm gonna hide that. While we're on this, I think it's probably timely to ask the last question to launch here. There we go. Who's seeking a long-term position? I say anyone kind of after CV information is probably likely working on that at the moment for a long-term position. So yeah, and the results kind of show that here. So 72% undecided, 11%. So that looks like we've collected all the results. Let's close that. Share.
So it's 72% with the yes there, was it?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, did I close it too quickly?
So 72% with the yes. Definitely, if you are looking for a full-time role, make sure you get in touch with your consultant. let them know so that we can do sort of that marketing your profile and getting that drawn up for you so that, if there is a suitable role that you like, that we can send it out to the school.
Cool, awesome. Well, I suppose once you've put the work in for your CV, that you're successful, and we've managed to work with a school to get you an interview. The next step is, how do you make the most of that interview in terms of putting your best foot forward. The really timely at the moment when it comes to interviews is virtual interviewing. So we touched on that with a webinar 2 or 3 weeks ago as we were kind of in the midst of this current situation, and we're working in schools, and it was becoming more, September was becoming more and more relevant, and schools were seeking long-term teachers for long-term roles, and trying to work out the best way to get people in front of them. Yep, sorry. Yep.
Sorry to stop you. I think the poll's still up as well. So can you just close that or head on to the interview tips slide? Sorry for the technical difficulties. It's not a webinar if you don't have some, is it?
Is that? Can you see the slide now?
Yeah, so currently you've got CV writing tips up. So you just have to move on to interview tips when you get a chance.
See, on my screen, I'm showing interview tips. So I think there's just a lag here, where the poll has just got stuck.
I think you might have to close the poll for types of work. Sorry, guys, a few technical difficulties. We'll get there eventually.
Interestingly, I can't close it. Sorry, team. Can only share. So
if you just click, I think if you just click on the poll, you can hit close.
Yeah, unfortunately I can't because it says it's closed, but it asked me to share it and then hide and share again. So apologies, team. And then when I'm sharing, so all I'm sharing is, I'm going to try this. 1 second. And there we go. Has that worked?
Yeah, it's worked on mine.
Can you see interview tips now? I think if you can see just interview tips, I just had to stop sharing my screen and then reset it. So if you can see that.
I can see that, yeah, no, that's perfect.
Awesome. Sorry for the technical difficulty, guys. That's almost had me stumped there. I wasn't ready for that. So
I'm happy I wasn't on the other end.
Interview tip. Sorry, where was I? So we were talking about, so I guess the fortunate thing about working with ANZUK is we've got years and years of experience of doing Skype interviews based on a lot of our teachers and educators coming from Australia and New Zealand and Canada, and we've got guys coming from the States now, which is really exciting. So in terms of like preparing you for the current environment, all our consultants are well versed in that, and it's in terms of putting your best foot forward, you're going to be well supported when it comes to that. So I'm just going to just jump out the screen again and jump into a little document that we have that we kind of send out prior to an interview to really kind of help you with how you're going to answer these questions and what to expect in an interview. So I think like this doesn't really change whether it's face to face or Skype. So I suppose at the moment the only difference is the way you present yourself through the screen. So if you're anything like me, you're wearing a shirt up top but shorts down the bottom.
Business up top, party down bottom, is it?
Yeah, that's it. So, you just got to be mindful of how you come across. Obviously, the key things is like, ideally you got a really good connection, and you can present yourself well. You can kind of see that you kind of in the right space in the screen. That's all the real basic stuff. But the more important stuff is, you're going to have the same opportunity, aside from being able to do a trial and teach in a classroom. But in terms of the interview, you're going to have the same opportunity to be able to present yourself. So we'll just quickly run through a few of these. Willie, feel free to add in anything here. Now, guys, I'm mindful that we're talking to an audience of teachers and support staff, so and also mindful that the process can be slightly different for each in terms of organising trials and building relationships if you're a support staff versus the interview process for a teacher. So the strategies, I suppose, are relevant now, and we will see support staff interviewing for roles for September as well. It's just going to be a case-by-case basis, but whatever the case, these tips are really kind of handy for whatever your situation. So I think that I won't go into the real detail and the wording of this, just kind of emphasize a few of the key points. You can have this document sent here, just ask your consultant. They'll be more than happy to pass this on to you. So clarity is the first key one. So don't be afraid to re-ask the question. So if you ask something about a specific situation or a specific kind of management strategy or teaching subject question, or don't be afraid to repeat the question back to the interviewer. Say, sorry, just to clarify, are you asking this? Yep, that's it. Okay, cool. Well, this is the answer. Specific. So that kind of links into the first point, is like, once you've got a clear understanding of what they're asking for, be specific. So I think the next points goes into how to do this. Yeah. So when it's more specifically on being specific, there's a technique here called the STAR technique. So this is really, really helpful, I think, for teachers and support staff alike. Like it's really a really useful tool because it's situation and experience dependent. So like, for example, in both situations, a teacher or support staff, you may get asked, what's your behaviour management strategy? And then that's a real opportunity to say, well, actually, I've been in a position where, and you explain a situation or a task that you've had to do in the past, and then you describe the action. And so, this was a situation, the students are playing up, this is the example, this is my action. So this is the opportunity to talk about what you did, and then what was the result. So the result was, the kids, the students in the class, we managed to settle the behaviour and we got on with the work, or however you want to phrase it. So it's a really good technique to link to any question. So I know there'll probably be differing levels of experience of people listening. So if you're an NQT, or if you've got less experience than someone else, there's always something you can link it back to. If you're an NQT, you can link it back to your placements. If you're an experienced teacher, you got multiple things you can talk about, multiple I suppose, situations that you can think back to give a really good detailed answer. So again, just have a few of these, I suppose, for each of the key questions that you think are going to pop up in the interview, ready to go. So on that, again, this just goes into the detail about your situation, task, action, what did you actually do, and what was the result. So, and then on the bottom of this document is just some really basic stuff about researching the school. This is where your consultant will come in really handy. Your consultant knows the school inside and out, so they'll tell you stuff you won't get on the website. Obviously, do the website research, but your consultant will tell you stuff like, you know, this department, this is the demographic of this department. They like to do this. You know, within you have this opportunity. You know, my experience dealing with this person is this, and they'll have a really good insight into like the cultural stuff and the stuff that's not tangible from reading a website. So, you know, the opportunities you'll get extracurricularly and stuff like that. Anything to add there, Willie?
Well, I guess your consultant will also find out about sort of the structure of the interview as well.
Yep.
So you're not just going to be blindsided with a formal interview when it might be more of a see you within a classroom type context. So if you don't receive that information, always ask. It's better to be well prepared than go into it blind and not sort of know what to expect. So always sort of ask questions, be inquisitive, get what the expectations are for the interview, just so you know.
Awesome. I'm mindful that we've kind of ticked over the half an hour mark, and the good thing is we're getting to the end of these tips and tricks. I think I'll just quickly scan over the rest of this document because again it is accessible to your consultant. But the key ideas was just to I suppose to iterate that, you know, there are some little techniques that you can use to help kind of prompt that thought process when you get asked a question. So if you come prepared with examples of, you know, the real life examples that you've had, or, you know, even theoretical examples, say, look, hey, I don't have that much experience, but based on, you know, talking to other teachers or whatever, this, I know this works really well, or based on what you've studied, like there's always an opportunity to link it to, you know, STAR type answer. Cool. This again is a couple of key points. Body language is key. Now that's probably one that's, you know, harder to do in a virtual situation at the moment. But you know, where you can, you know, use your hands and try and use your body and show an open kind of tone, I suppose, when you come to body language for the interview as best as possible. So yeah, that's probably a key one, is be mindful of that, even though you're on a virtual platform, to show that you are listening and being attentive. So the rest of it's just a bit of questions. So again, we've got a document, this one and another one that will just have a few example questions. So again, talk to your consultant about those if you want to kind of work through a few different questions that you might get asked. But again, your consultant will be well versed in these and be able to support you there. Again, this is just another document that we have. Particularly, you know, a lot of the stuff that we do have was for you know, teachers moving over from the other side of the world. So one of the things that teachers over here want to know is, you know, why did you move over to the UK? What's your choice? You know, and really interested in the personal side of that, and gives you the opportunity to talk about, you know, some of your background, some of your interests, some of your travel experience and stuff like that. So that's tips and tricks in a nutshell. I'm just gonna log back onto our slides, Willie, but I think we just opened it up to some questions.
Also, when it comes to, just quickly, Mikey, when it comes to sort of interviews and that type of process, I mean, at ANZUK, we do have a mix between people that have been in different industries and people that are teachers and support staff as well, that can really relate to the questions that you're going to face.
Yeah.
So if say myself, a management background, I can't answer that. I can always put you in touch with someone in the office that, you know, been in the school, faced these questions, and they'll be able to elaborate on that further. One team feel, so we're all here to help.
Yeah, and that's I think you're exactly right, Willie. We've across the office, we've got you know, experience from, yeah, we've got teachers in the office as well who yeah, are there to help. So if it's not your direct consultant, there'll be someone there that can support. Hey, I do have a question that come through that I'm just going to reference. So you know, Claire, who put her name up for other in terms of what she's looking for, and I mentioned leadership might be one of the you know, the types of people listening in to looking for the next role. So, and she's actually had a really you know, valuable comment there and question about the real basics of a CV that we didn't maybe touch on enough. Well, is, you know, the things like font and size and stuff like that. So, you know, really simple and effective, I think, is the way to go. We've got, you know, you've got we can give you the ANZUK template. We use a particular font that aligns with our kind of, I suppose, our marketing and the way we present all of our yeah, all of our information to clients and candidates. So you know, we'll give you one a template, and the font will be set in that. But I'd say outside of that, just as standard and, you know, Arial Black type Times New Roman set up. I think there's, you know, you're trying to be concise and consistent and you know, as to the point as possible within a CV, as much as, you know, a lot of CVs give you the opportunity to add as much detail as possible. I think simple and effective is the way to go. So that would apply to font as well. But again, yeah, and the ANZUK CV will have a set font for you. So that will just go with the rest of the CV. Go, Willie.
Sorry to butt in, just to add to that. Yeah, good question, Claire. With like layout and formatting, as I mentioned, I think make sure when you make style decisions, they are the same throughout. So if you're going to have a heading which is size 14, again, it's a personal preference when it comes to the style of it. But if you're going to have a heading which is size 14, make sure that you have the same heading throughout, the same sizes. You don't want to have sort of, I don't know if you remember old text language where it used to be a small a, big A throughout, which looked really weird. Just make sure it is consistent throughout. I think that's the biggest push or sort of information that we can give you, is just consistency, really. But the style decisions are all yours. You're obviously more than welcome to have a look at our layout on the example CVs and ask your consultant and just see what sort of font we use and what size we use as well.
Cool. That's all the questions, unless anyone has any more. I'm just making sure. I've got a couple of comments. Oh, actually, we do. Thanks. Got a thanks. Here we go. I think this specific question is for probably outside of this particular webinar, but we'll get in touch with that person. Cool. I've just got someone saying yes, all good when we had our technical difficulties. So thank you for that feedback. Other than that, yeah, you guys that have asked questions, hopefully we've answered them as best we can. But again, like this, just go directly to your consultant for additional support, and access to this webinar will be available throughout. But I think, Willie, and looking at the time, I imagine people are probably getting sick of our voices now. So we'll sign off unless we hear from any last people. But oh, sorry, this actually this is a good question, and I'll quickly cover this before we sign off, guys. And it's just about photos on a CV. Now, good question. For the photos, don't apply them to your CV. And Willie, feel free to butt in if you have kind of ultimate advice. But we use photos to make a profile. For an ANZUK profile that summarizes your CV. So we'll take your CV, summarize it into kind of a little profile, and we'll include a photo. So we'll use a headshot. We find that they can be really powerful. So it's a really good question for the CV. You know, I wouldn't apply it for the CV, but you know, when you're working with your consultant, they'll ask you for a headshot to go with your profile, and it just kind of helps complete the profile. So good question. But yeah, that's where the photo would come into use.
Yeah, we generally use the photo from the registration process anyway. So I'm with you that, again, I don't use a photo on a CV, never have, but again, the style decisions are yours. Our template doesn't use a photo. It is more for the profile process anyway.
Cool. Well, that was
and also sort of just quickly mention, it needs to be professional style. So no selfies or no filters either. So professional style. Generally, professional style is a white background, and it gets to sort of shoulders up. But yeah, so even with me here, that's not professional, but if I turned around, there's a white wall on the other side that I could use.
cool. Well, I'm gonna thanks for the question, guys. I hope that's been helpful for your Wednesday afternoon. I hope it's been timely as well as we start thinking about the next academic school year. So as I've said, get in touch with your consultant for any more information. We're all there to support you guys with your CVs and getting putting your best possible foot forward for your next role. So do please reach out. I'm gonna sign out. Thanks, Willie. Thanks, team. See you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys.